They say artists live loud lives, that we're always performing, always on, never vulnerable. But that night in Los Angeles, sitting across from Kendall Jenner at a corner table in West Hollywood, I wasn't performing at all. I was just tired. Tired of the noise, the expectations, the constant need to be Bad Bunny instead of just Benito. The dinner wasn't planned. A mutual friend threw it together. One of those intimate gatherings where everyone's famous enough not to care about being famous. Low lighting, good wine, conversations that actually meant something. I almost didn't go. I'd been in the studio for 3 days straight, running on cafecito and stubbornness, and all I wanted was my bed. But something told me to show up. She was sitting near the window when I walked in, her silhouette framed by the glow of Sunset Boulevard. I'd seen her before. Of course I had. You can't exist in this world without knowing who Kendall Jenner is. But seeing someone in person is different. She wasn't the untouchable figure from magazine covers or the distant presence at fashion shows. She was real, quiet, almost shy in the way she tucked her hair behind her ear when someone spoke to her. I sat down a few seats away, not thinking much of it. We made eye contact once, maybe twice. A polite nod, a half smile, nothing more. But later, when the group shifted and people moved around, she ended up next to me. And that's when it started, not with fireworks or grand gestures, but with a simple question. Do you ever get tired of it all? I looked at her surprised, not by the question itself, but by the way she asked it, like she already knew the answer, like she was asking herself as much as she was asking me. Every day, I said. She nodded slowly, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. Yeah, me too. That was it. No cameras, no headlines, just two people admitting something true in a world that rarely lets you be honest. We talked for hours that night, about music, about pressure, about the strange loneliness that comes with being seen by millions, but truly known by almost no one. She told me about growing up in front of cameras, about how every choice she made was dissected, criticized, turned into a story that had nothing to do with her. I told her about Puerto Rico, about missing home, about the weight of carrying an entire culture on your back while trying to stay yourself. When the dinner ended, we didn't exchange numbers, we didn't make plans, but something had shifted. A door had opened, and neither of us was sure if we wanted to walk through it. A week later, I saw her again. Another party, another city, this time Miami. She was with her friends, I was with mine, and yet somehow we ended up in the same corner of the same rooftop, watching the same ocean reflect the same moon. This time, the conversation came easier. We laughed more. She told me about a shoot that went wrong in Paris. I told her about a show in San Juan where the power went out and the crowd sang every word without me. We talked until the sun started to rise, and when we finally said goodbye, I realized I didn't want to. The rumors started almost immediately. Someone saw us leaving together, a paparazzi caught us at a stoplight, a fan posted a blurry photo. Suddenly, the narrative was written for us. Bad Bunny and Kendall Jenner, the Puerto Rican star and the American supermodel, a headline waiting to happen. But what no one saw were the late-night FaceTimes when I was on tour and she was in New York, the random texts at 3 a.m. when neither of us could sleep, the way she sent me pictures of sunsets from wherever she was, and I sent her voice notes of songs I was working on. The world saw rumors. We were living something else entirely. People think artists don't feel the weight of silence, pressure, or fear. But I met Kendall at a moment when I wasn't looking for anything real, and that's exactly when life handed me something I couldn't ignore. She wasn't the loud, untouchable version the world imagines. She was quiet, steady, and unexpectedly honest. And for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could be the same. This is the story no one knows, the one behind the cameras, the headlines, the noise, the one that was real, even when the world decided it wasn't. The first time we were seen together, really seen, was at a Dodgers game.
It wasn't planned. I'd been invited by a friend, and she happened to be there too. We sat a few rows apart at first, but during the seventh inning, she texted me, "This is so boring. Want to get out of here?" I looked up, found her in the crowd, and she was smiling. Not the camera-ready smile everyone knows, but the real one. The one that made her eyes crinkle just slightly. I texted back, "Let's go." We left separately, met up a few blocks away, and ended up at a taco spot in East LA. The kind of place that doesn't care who you are as long as you pay cash and don't cause trouble. We sat outside, under string lights that flickered every few seconds, and ate carnitas like we had all the time in the world. She ordered in broken Spanish, and I teased her about her accent. She laughed, threw a napkin at me, and for a moment it felt normal, like we were just two people grabbing dinner. But normal doesn't last long in our world. By the time we got back to our cars, the photos were already online. Bad Bunny and Kendall Jenner spotted on secret date. The comments came fast. Some people loved it, others hated it. Some said I was using her for clout. Others said she was using me for edge. Everyone had an opinion, and none of them were asking us. "Does this bother you?" she asked the next day, scrolling through her phone. We were at my place in the Hollywood Hills, sitting on the balcony overlooking the city. The sun was setting, painting everything in shades of gold and pink, but she wasn't looking at the view. She was looking at the screen, at the hundreds of strangers deciding what our relationship meant. "A little," I admitted, "but I'm used to it." She put her phone down and looked at me. "I'm not sure I'll ever get used to it." I understood what she meant. For me, the attention came later, after the music, after the success. I had a life before the cameras. But Kendall, she was born into this. Every moment of her life had been documented, analyzed, monetized. She didn't have a before. She only had during.
"We don't owe them anything," I said. "Not explanations, not confirmations, nothing." She nodded, but I could see the doubt in her eyes. Because even if we didn't owe the world anything, the world would take it anyway. The next few weeks were strange. We tried to keep things quiet, but quiet isn't possible when you're us. Every dinner became a headline. Every car ride became a photo op. Every laugh, every touch, every glance was turned into evidence of something we hadn't even defined yet. "What are we doing?" she asked one night. We were in her apartment in Calabasas, sitting on the floor with takeout containers spread around us. She'd ordered sushi, I'd ordered Thai, and we were sharing both because neither of us could commit to just one thing. It felt symbolic. "I don't know," I said honestly, "but I like it." She smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "I like it too, but I'm scared." "Of what?" "Of this," she gestured vaguely. And I knew she didn't mean the food or the apartment or even us. She meant everything. The attention, the pressure, the inevitable moment when the world would decide we weren't interesting anymore, or worse, when it would decide we were too interesting. I reached for her hand, and she let me take it. Her fingers were cold, and I held them between mine, trying to warm them up. "We'll figure it out, one day at a time." But even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it. The truth is, we were both carrying too much. I had an album to finish, a tour to plan, a legacy to protect. She had campaigns, contracts, family dynamics that made mine look simple. And in the middle of all that, we were trying to build something real, something that didn't exist for the cameras or the clicks, but for us. It should have been easier. We had everything: success, freedom, resources. But somehow that made it harder, because when you have everything, you're expected to make everything work. And when you can't, it feels like failure. One night, after a particularly brutal week of headlines, she called me crying. Not the kind of crying that you do for show, but the kind that comes from deep inside, from a place you didn't even know was hurting. "I can't do this," she said. "I thought I could, but I can't." "Can't do what?" I asked, even though I already knew. "This. Us. The noise.
I can't be the villain in someone else's story again. I didn't say anything. What could I say? I couldn't promise her the noise would stop. I couldn't promise her the world would leave us alone. All I could do was be honest. Then we stop, I said quietly. If it's too much, we stop. She was silent for a long time, and in that silence I felt something break. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a quiet crack, like ice on a frozen lake. I don't want to stop, she whispered, but I don't know how to keep going. Neither did I.
After that phone call, things changed. We didn't break up, not officially, but we stopped trying so hard to make it work. We stopped going out, stopped being seen, stopped feeding the machine that was feeding on us. For a while, it was better. We existed in the in-between. She'd come over late at night, after her shoots, when the city was quiet and the paparazzi were asleep. We'd talk, listen to music, order food we didn't really eat. Sometimes we'd just sit in silence, and that was enough. I remember one night in particular. It was late, maybe 2 or 3 a.m., and she showed up unannounced. I was in the studio, working on a track that wasn't going anywhere, and when I opened the door, she was standing there in sweats and no makeup, looking more tired than I'd ever seen her. "Can I just be here?" she asked. "Always," I said. She curled up on the couch while I worked, and at some point she fell asleep. I stopped the session, turned off the lights, and just watched her for a moment. She looked peaceful, younger, like the version of herself she might have been if the world had been kinder. I covered her with a blanket and went back to the booth. But I didn't record anything. I just sat there, thinking about how strange it was. 2 people with everything, feeling like they had nothing. 2 people the world watched constantly, feeling invisible. The next morning, she was gone. No note, no text, just an empty couch and the faint smell of her perfume. I didn't hear from her for a week after that. At first, I thought maybe she needed space. But then a week turned into 2, and 2 turned into a month, and I started to realize this was her way of ending it, not with words, but with distance. I should have reached out. I should have called, texted, shown up at her door, but I didn't, because part of me understood. Part of me knew that sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is let them go. Still, it hurt.
I threw myself into work, finished the album, planned the tour, did interviews where I smiled and talked about music and carefully avoided any question about my personal life. People asked about Kendall. Of course they did. Are you 2 together? What happened? Was it real? I always gave the same answer. I don't talk about my private life. But late at night, when the interviews were over and the cameras were off, I thought about her. I wondered if she was thinking about me too. I wondered if she regretted walking away or if she was relieved. Then, out of nowhere, she texted me. "I'm sorry." That was it. 2 words. No explanation, no follow-up, just sorry. I stared at the message for a long time, trying to figure out what to say. There were 1,000 things I could have said, 1,000 questions I could have asked. But in the end, I kept it simple. Me too. She didn't respond, and I didn't expect her to. But something about that exchange felt like closure. Like we'd both acknowledged what we lost, even if we couldn't get it back. A few months later, I saw her at a party in New York, Fashion Week. One of those events where everyone who matters is in the same room pretending they don't see each other. I was there for a brand partnership. She was there for work. And when our eyes met across the room, I felt everything all over again. She looked different, lighter maybe, or maybe just more herself. She smiled, a small, genuine smile, and I smiled back. We didn't talk. We didn't need to. That smile said everything. Later that night, I got another text from her. "You looked good tonight." I smiled at my phone like an idiot. So did you. Maybe we were never supposed to work, but I'm glad we tried. I read that message over and over, and eventually I replied, "Me too."
And that was it. No grand reunion, no second chance, just two people acknowledging that what they had was real, even if it couldn't last.
Enjoying the story? Hit the like button, subscribe, drop your comment, and turn on the notifications. Let's keep going.
The world never got the full story. They saw the photos, the rumors, the timeline of appearances and disappearances. They created their own narrative, one where I was the rebound, or she was the distraction, or we were both just playing games. But the truth was quieter than that, simpler, and somehow more painful. We were two people who found each other at the wrong time. I think about that a lot. What if we'd met 5 years earlier, or 5 years later? What if she hadn't been carrying the weight of her family's empire? What if I hadn't been in the middle of the biggest moment of my career? What if the world had just left us alone? But what if is a dangerous game. It keeps you stuck in a version of the past that never existed. The truth is, we did the best we could. We gave each other something real in a world that trades in fakeness. We were honest when everyone expected us to perform. And even though it didn't last, it mattered. I saw her one more time after that night in New York. It was in Los Angeles, at a small gallery opening in Silver Lake. She was with friends, I was with mine, and for once there were no cameras, no headlines, no noise. We ended up outside, smoking a cigarette we were sharing, even though neither of us really smoked. "This is weird, right?" she said, laughing softly. "Very weird," I agreed. "But good weird." "Yeah, good weird." We talked for a while, about nothing important. About her dog, about my mom, about a restaurant we both loved that had closed down. It was easy, comfortable, like we'd known each other forever, even though we barely knew each other at all. When it was time to go, she hugged me. A real hug, the kind that says everything words can't. "Take care of yourself, Benito," she whispered. "You too, Kendall." And then she was gone. I haven't seen her since that night in New York. I don't know if I will. But I think about her sometimes, late at night when the world is quiet and I'm alone with my thoughts. I think about the way she laughed, the way she looked at the ocean, the way she made me feel like I could be myself, even when the whole world was watching. People ask me if I regret it, if I wish we'd tried harder, fought longer, held on tighter. And the truth is, I don't. Because what we had was never meant to be permanent. It was meant to be real. And it was. We were real. Even if the world never understood it.
There's a phrase I've heard before, something Paulo Coelho once wrote. When we meet someone and fall in love, we have a sense that the whole universe is on our side, and yet if something goes wrong, there is nothing left. I used to think that was dramatic. Poetic, sure, but exaggerated. But now I understand it, because that's exactly how it felt with Kendall, like the universe had aligned for a moment and then quietly moved on. People think love stories need happy endings to matter. They think if it doesn't last forever, it wasn't real. But I've learned that's not true. Some things are real precisely because they're temporary, because they teach you something, because they change you in ways you didn't expect. Kendall taught me that vulnerability isn't weakness, that you can be strong and scared at the same time, that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is admit when something isn't working, even when you wish it would. I don't know what she's doing right now. Maybe she's at a shoot in Paris, or having dinner with her sisters, or sitting on a balcony somewhere looking at the same stars I'm looking at. I hope she's happy. I hope she's found peace. I hope she knows that what we had, however brief, however complicated, was worth it. Because it was. The world will keep spinning. The headlines will keep coming. People will keep asking questions we'll never answer. But somewhere, in the quiet moments between the noise,
I'll carry the memory of her. The late-night talks, the shared silences, the way she made me feel seen, even when I was surrounded by millions. That's the thing about real connections. They don't need to last forever to leave a mark. They don't need a perfect ending to mean something. They just need to be honest. And ours was. So if you're reading this, wondering if it was real, it was. If you're wondering if we loved each other, we did in our own way. And if you're wondering if I have any regrets, I don't. Because even though we couldn't make it work, we tried. We showed up. We were brave enough to be vulnerable in a world that punishes vulnerability. And that's enough. Life isn't about holding on to everything. Sometimes it's about letting go with grace, about honoring what was without needing it to be more than it was. Kendall and I had our moment. It was beautiful, it was messy, it was real. And I wouldn't change a thing. So here's what I've learned. Love doesn't always look like the movies. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it's brief. Sometimes it's two people finding each other at the wrong time and still choosing to be kind, to be honest, to be present. And that's not a failure. That's just life. I'm grateful for what we had, for the conversations, the laughter, the late nights and early mornings, for the way she reminded me that underneath all the noise, I'm still just Benito and she's still just Kendall. Two people trying to navigate a world that doesn't make space for quiet, real moments. We didn't get a fairy tale ending, but we got something better. We got the truth. And the truth is, she'll always be a part of my story, not as a scandal, not as a headline, but as someone who showed me what it means to be vulnerable, to be honest, to be human. So, thank you, Kendall, for everything. For the moments no one saw, for the conversations no one heard, for being real when the world wanted us to be anything but. I hope our paths cross again someday. And if they don't, I hope you know you mattered. What we had mattered. And I'll carry that with me wherever I go.
If you watched until here, thank you. Tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love reading your messages. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notifications so you never miss another story like this. And if you'd like to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee. Any amount helps a lot. Link in the pinned comment.